Hi, I'm Tim Elmore, CEO of Growing Leaders and the author of a brand new book called The 8 Paradoxes of Great Leadership. Today on the show, we're going to talk about Gen Z's requests of leaders, the newest generation in the workforce today, how they're wanting certain qualities and certain attributes that we're typically not accustomed to giving them. We're going to talk about why leading today is harder than it was than back in the day when you first learned to lead. And we're going to talk about the acid test every leader must pass if they're going to effectively lead today. Stay tuned. I look forward to being with you.
Welcome back to part 2 of our delicious conversation with Dr. Tim Elmore. Dr. Tim is the founder and CEO of Growing Leaders, an Atlanta-based nonprofit organization. He grew up, well, not really grew up, his work grew out of working 20 years alongside of John Maxwell. However, Tim is definitely not standing in anybody's shadow. He's appeared in the Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, and many, many other outlets. He's written no less than at least 35 books. My goodness, I've written a lot of books, but wow, he makes me feel like I'm lazy. And his new book is called The 8 Paradoxes of Leadership. And that's what we've been talking about here. We've been talking about, in part 1 of the show, we talked about those, what the 8 paradoxes were. We talked about how leadership today is not what it was. We talked about the next generation, which is not just millennials, because millennials, the oldest ones are now are in their early 40s. We've now got Gen Z. We talked about how Gen Z have already grown up in a gig economy and are now becoming day workers in a corporate environment, which is kind of crazy on top of everything else. And where I wanted to sort of start off this particular episode, part 2 of our conversation, is, Tim talked about in part 1 that how this book came about was there was a green room conversation with a bunch of other leaders. He turned it into a focus group to ask the question, is it easier or harder to lead today? And totally across the board, the answer was it's harder today. So talk to us, Tim, about what you found out about why it's harder today. We should be easier. We seem to be brighter. We have the bloody internet,
Yep.
Right? It should be easier, surely, to goodness. So why do you think it's harder?
I actually asked that question before the pandemic. Certainly, we'd all agree the pandemic has made leadership a little bit tumultuous. But when I began to dig on why is it harder, there were 5 big ideas that I came up with that drove me to feel much better about conceding that it is harder. First of all, think about it. People come to our teams with higher levels of education than they ever have before. Each new generation has a little bit more formal education than the previous. Now, education is different than common sense, but they bring level. So we all feel like armchair quarterbacks, that we're second. Yes, please. Yes. So higher levels of education, higher levels of emotion. So Dov, when I first started my career, it was the mantra of most workplaces was leave your personal problems at the door. You come in here to get your work done. Well, today it's bring your whole selves to work. And we like that, but yet when you get the whole self, you get emotion, anxiety, baggage. I had a CEO recently say, I think you'll enjoy this. I don't know if I need to be a motivational speaker, a therapist, a CEO, a coach. Well, it's all the above. On any given day, we have to be. So I think they bring higher levels of exposure, meaning they have a smartphone in their hand. And they've been exposed to all the dirt on leaders, even you and me. And then the last one, higher levels of expectations. I think people expect more of a leader today and of a workplace, benefits, perks. I find that young employees especially are asking for audacious. I interview them for the job, then they interview me. Whoa, this is crazy. But it's a new day. And we can either get mad or get busy. I always say that we can get mad or get busy. I say we get busy and let's lead well.
But, if, we're talking 25 years ago, you and I have been around long enough that we can remember 25 years ago, vaguely at least.
Yeah.
And back in those days, the employer had the power.
Yeah, that's right.
I have the power. I'll give you the job or I won't.
Mm-hmm.
I was reading last week as we record this, but it was last week that there was a company in Holland who was paying $5,000 for you to stick around for 6 months as a bonus, and
Wow.
paying people $500 to just show up for an interview.
Oh my goodness.
Right. So the power is in the hands of the talent. We
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember speaking to leaders before the pandemic and saying, as the pandemic was sort of breaking, wasn't before, but it was as it was breaking. And I said, you need me more than ever.
Yeah.
And they said, why? I said, because this is going to be an emotional
Yeah.
gong show.
Yes.
And you think you're going to have the power again because the talent is going to go, oh my God, I've got no money, I'm out of work.
Yeah.
And they're going to have more power. And they're like, that's ridiculous. Well, we've got
You
the
were
great
right.
resignation,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
and I'm not trying to be a prophet, but we've got the great resignation, and we've got employees who are saying, yeah, no.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, I said yes at the time, but I've changed my mind. I went for lunch and I've changed my mind. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So it's that power differential again. So how do we, because that's another paradox, right?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
So we have to own our power as the leader and as the employer, but we also have to recognize their power.
Yeah.
In the context of you can go anywhere, including on your own, that you couldn't do 25 years ago.
Do you know the best, most helpful activity I do in my mind with my team is I pretend they're all volunteers.
Oh,
in other words,
like
if
that.
there's no money being exchanged, would they still want to be around me? Would they still want to follow my direction? That's an acid test. So now we do pay them and they get healthcare and so forth. But I'm telling you, that's an acid test for my leadership, is when no currency except for my winning them at the heart level is on the table. So I would recommend people try that once in a while. It's gonna test you.
Tim, I think that is probably the most practical, simple advice any leader could get right now. If these people weren't paid and they were volunteering to show up, would they show up?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I get, I think that is a real shake people in their boots kind of thing for leaders, because you would find that a lot of your people would just go, yeah, you know what? I don't have to pay the rent. I ain't going there.
Yeah.
No, I'm not bothering.
Yeah.
But if you are a leader that you're talking about, who lives in these paradoxes, who understands how to be an uncommon leader, you've got to be stepping into that. And they may not be, cheering for you at every possible corner, but they've got to be cheering for you in the majority of it.
Absolutely. And Dov, I think we have to give people multiple reasons to follow us. And when I say follow, I mean serve with us. But
yes,
if I just give them one reason, here's some cash. Well, there's more cash down the street, maybe. But if I give them, I keep going back, I got to win them at the heart level. And if I do that, if I win on that ball field, then I have something. And I want them to be here because they want to be here, not because they have to be here. So that's what I'm after in these paradoxes.
Well, let's go at that for a minute. Win them at the heart level. That's kind of one of those fluffy statements. That is thrown around, and people, will hear it and go, yeah, Tim's right, but they don't know what to do with it. They don't, especially if they're old school, they don't know what to do with that. Am I supposed to rah-rah them? Am I supposed to, how do from your point of view, how are the best leaders, the uncommon leaders, winning them, meaning their teams, at that heart level?
I think they're addressing personal human issues that the people are facing, not just work issues. So just to illustrate, one of the paradoxes is uncommon leaders are both deeply personal and inherently collective. So here's how I think you play this out. When I'm up in front of our team and I'm giving direction for the week or for the event we're about to hold or whatever, I have to speak collectively. I have to let these people know I see the big picture. That's what leaders do. In fact, we have to do it really well. But while I'm speaking and communicating a vision for the big picture, I want each of those people standing there to look at me and go, oh my gosh, He's reading my mail. He knows exactly how I'm feeling right now. He knows what I'm going through. Okay, since he knows me, I'm going with him on this journey to this big picture. But boy, that's usually a skill set that those skill sets don't go together all the time. You either hear this generic boss giving the numbers from last year's report, and it's blah, 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 blah. Or you see just the opposite. It's like I have a therapist in front of me, but you go, good God, do you even see what we're facing right now, Bob? It's both and. It's both and. It's both and. Yeah.
So, I fully agree with you. And one of the things that my research, my work is that one of the things that I believe that you win people's hearts is human beings, and this is not my opinion, this is research, but human beings are meaning-making machines. We're always looking for meaning.
Yes.
And we're looking for meaning. And if you don't prescribe that meaning, the meaning will be made up and probably not to your advantage.
Yeah.
And you have to design a meaning that is so purpose-driven.
Yes.
This is why we're here. Yeah, the profit is good, like you were saying right in the beginning of the first episode. You need the profit in order to serve. The money from Ohio University is helping students in Nairobi who wouldn't have that money. But that's a purpose-driven organization.
Yes. Yeah.
So talk to us about how purpose is also part of that paradoxical way of being.
Yeah, that's a great question. So money, as you said, has to be part of the equation. But great companies I know really are allowing money to be a byproduct. And I know that sounds crazy. Some of your listeners are going, I don't believe that. But I was just speaking at the Chick-fil-A National Conference. And I believe while every one of those restaurants know they've got to generate revenue, people that are served there and hear it's my pleasure at the end of the chicken sandwich being served up to you, they feel like there's a sense of, wow, this isn't just about chicken, this is about people. Yeah. So that's what I think money flow, and boy, it has. They've double-digit growth for years and years, even during a pandemic. Yeah. But I think it's because the pursuit is serving and meaning and purpose, and money follows. If we can get that down, I just think people are drawn. In fact, when I shared that paradox about personal and collective, my case study, believe it or not, on that one was Mother Teresa. I mean, she's not a CEO of a company. In fact, she's no longer with us. But Mother Teresa stayed close enough to her work, holding children, cleansing lepers on the streets of Calcutta, never too far away, that she did have a story to tell when she was getting funding from a CEO down the street.
Right.
That's hard to balance, but we've got to do it.
Yeah. So in that work, again, this, the practicality of this is what I want to get to, because there are many people who are going to listen and I know my audience are going to be like, absolutely agree.
Yeah.
What's the practicality to stepping into some of these paradoxes when it feels like either or the conditioning is, the training is inside of that individual listening who agrees with us, but goes, yeah, but I don't even know where the first step is. I get it, but I'm kind of trained this way and I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Okay. That's a great question. So I love teaching leadership with images. You mentioned even at the beginning, habitudes are images that form leadership habits and attitudes. One of our images that I think answers that question is an image that I call dentists and cavities. Dentists and cavities. So listeners, if you've ever been to the dentist and he or she finds a cavity in your mouth, they often will say, "Oop, found a cavity. Can you stay a little bit longer and I'll fill it right now? Or if you can't, can you come back as soon as possible?" And the reason they do is because they know if I don't fill that cavity, bacteria is going to fill that cavity. Something's going to fill that hole there. Exactly. I think leaders need to know there are mental cavities. When we are anxious and scared of a pandemic and scared for our jobs and afraid for our families, we have cavities and we get a distorted narrative that fills that cavity. It's bacteria. Leaders need to be dentists. We're filling the cavities. And if I'm mindful of my people and those cavities they might have as I interface with them right now, more than what I need, I'm thinking about what they need. I'm going to be a better leader. I'm going to read my people before I lead my people. And they might need collective. They might need personal. They might need confidence. They might need humility. You follow? These are the paradoxes. But I see, what Richard needs right now is humility from me. He needs to see, wow, Richard, I need your help on this one. I don't think I know what I'm, but Susan might need, she needs confidence from her boss right now because she's scared to death where I don't even know what I'm doing. And I need to, now I don't fake it till I make it, but I'm just, I'm reading before I'm leading, and I'm filling the cavities that are out there that need to be filled.
So let's do the pushback on that, because the
Okay.
pushback on that is, that's great, Tim. I don't have time. I'm
Yeah,
trying to
yeah,
keep
yeah.
the company afloat.
Yes, yeah,
The board is on me to bring the profits up, and
yeah,
we just came through a pandemic, and
yeah,
I got to focus on that. I don't have time for this. It's a lovely idea.
yeah.
And maybe I'll get to it in 5 years, but
Yeah, yeah. No, it's a great point you make. So I have given myself one action, one assignment, really for most all of these paradoxes. There is assignments on the end of every chapter, but the one biggie that maybe would be a takeaway for a person that says, I'm too busy for all this, is this. I think I may have alluded to it earlier. When I'm in a meeting, I should speak as if I believe I'm right, but I must listen as if I believe I'm wrong. What that does to a team is almost magic, because they know I'm going to be confident. I'm way too confident. Now I just, let's go charge hell with a water pistol, Yeah. But when I show I'm listening as if I think you might be the right one and I may be oh my gosh, what that does. They'll go to the mat for me. They'll run through a wall. So I don't think that takes care of everything, but I would give that single assignment to listeners. Speak as if you believe you're right. Listen as if you believe you're wrong, and see what happens to your team.
that is, again, it's simple, practical, and profound, and so vitally important. In all this work, and you talked about Gen Z, you've talked about millennials, and you've got these paradoxes. And of course, this is all, I think that, my opinion, because I've led this way my entire life, is I think these things have always been true, but they're now in demand, right? We now have a workforce that's demanding them. What do you see of the future of leadership? Because for me, is a fascinating subject. And I think that, in fairness, my opinion, it's not the truth, I think that most leaders are, I'm trying to think of a nice way to put this. There isn't one. They're just bloody ignorant, right? They're just bloody ignorant. And that they think it's going to be this way forever.
Yeah.
And they'll use language like, well, we've done this for 20 years and it's worked.
Yeah.
And my answer is, basing the future on the past is a really great recipe for failure.
Yep.
So what do you see as the future of leadership?
Well, you mentioned the command and control model, which some leaders still embrace, even long past its death. In the very last chapter of this book, I actually talked about the future of leadership. And I am replacing that military commander model, which was very commonplace 60 years ago, with a double metaphor, a poet gardener. And here's what I mean by that. When you read a poem, I know we don't read a lot of poetry these days, but let's think about the last time you read a poem and you said, my gosh, that's great. That's a great poem. The reason you thought that was a great poem is because that poet put into words the very thing you're feeling inside. He or she just captured, the feeling and the thought that you have. I think poet leaders are people that place around them a team of leaders, not just team of followers, team of leaders, diverse skills and perspective, but shared values and vision. Let me say that again. I talk too fast. Diverse skills and perspective. I need diversity there, but shared values and vision. But as a poet leader, I'm listening, soaking in. It's almost like I'm studying culture, organizational culture there. And then I'm pulling ideas from this one and that one and this one. And when I speak, I'm like a poet where everybody goes, oh my gosh, that's it. You said what we're feeling. But now I do need to be the wordsmith. I do need to say it, They do need a point person to say it, but that's what a poet leader is. The gardener metaphor I love, because I think the future of leadership is in the same way that a gardener goes out to that garden and tills the soil, plants a seed, fertilizes, waters, sunshine, etc. I think this person, this poet, this gardener leader, sees their primary job as growing the people under their care. Yeah, we got to sell widgets for sure, but I'm going to grow these people here, and they're probably going to linger and be loyal because I'm growing them. They don't want to leave this environment. And by the way, if you grow people, wouldn't you agree? You do want to stay around it. Not everybody's doing that. So anyway, I would say that poet gardener is what I'm grasping as a future picture of a tomorrow leader.
Thank you. So with that in mind, there are people going to be listening to this. Our listeners, our viewers are going to be watching, and they get everything you're saying, and they want to go there. But this is one of the things, and I know you hear it too. It's all right for you.
Yeah.
I'm not that kind of personality. It's like, well, Dov, I'm just not as confident and as charismatic as you. And I'm like, dude, I'm an introvert who battled massive imposter syndrome for about 30 years. So, let's get real here. What was the turning point for you? Were you always about servant leadership and coming at it from these paradoxes, or were you about something else? Was there a turning point for you? Was there some awakening for you?
Yeah, there was. I think I entered my career like most human leaders do. I was insecure. I was a people pleaser. I wanted everybody to like me. We weren't doing a vote every week, but in a sense, leaders are voting. I mean, teams are voting with their feet, So here there was an image. There was an image that really broke through for me. And I call it guard dogs and guide dogs. Guard dogs and guide dogs. So we have given canines over the years many jobs. Two of the most common jobs are guard dog and guide dog. Think about the job of guard dog. That dog is on a piece of property and he's sniffing and growling and barking and suspecting intruders and protecting. The guide dog, oh my gosh, totally different. I remember speaking at a conference not long ago, and the man that spoke before me was blind. He had a guide dog. That dog led him up the steps across the platform to the podium, stopped in the perfect place. The man gave the speech. The dog must have known what the last line was supposed to be because the dog stood up, walked him right off the platform, sat him down, and I thought, what a great leader. And I wasn't thinking about the man. I was talking about the dog. So here's what I would say. The primary job of the guard dog is to protect. The primary job of the guide dog is to partner. I go first. I'm being vulnerable. I'm taking initiative. I think we tend as humans to be guard dogs. We hold our cards close to our chest. We don't show anybody what we're feeling. I think the job for the busy leader that says, I don't know if I get this, push yourself to be a guide dog, to say, I'm going to tip my hand and say, this is scary, isn't it? Or I'm going to need all of you to give your best. I don't think I've got it in me, but together I think we do. Those kinds of human, vulnerable, transparent cues are what your team is longing for. They don't want some pretentious, egocentric, brat that's demanding his way. And Dov, you challenge people all the time. I've listened to your podcast. This is what you're challenging people to be. But my picture is be a guide dog, not a guard dog. Yeah.
I love that. Thank you. That you are a poet, sir. Thank you. You are, because you've used these great metaphors to bring things together. In fact, I am going to decide that you are now a French philosopher and poet, and your name, as you know, as a time traveling.
Yes.
Time L'Amour.
L'Amour. I've got a board member that calls me that.
Time L'Amour. And if you don't know what that is, his name is Tim L'Amour. And if you Tim Elmore, and if you break his word up and change where the E lands, his name becomes Time L'Amour.
That's right. Absolutely.
So thank you. Listen, Tim, this has been an absolute pleasure and an honor, sir. Thank you for the work that you're doing. Thank you for the difference that you're making. I want to make sure that people can find out more about you, about your resources, about your books. please tell everybody where they can find out more about you in all the different outlets.
Sure. Yeah. The nonprofit organization I lead is simply called growingleaders.com. Growingleaders.com. There's a lot of free content there and then resources you can purchase. And then my personal site is timelmore.com. And there are articles there. And obviously you can schedule me if you want to speak at an event. But Dov, same to you. I so appreciate the work you do. Thanks for staying with it for so long. I applaud what you're doing, and you're helping so many folks like me. Appreciate it.
Thank you, sir. We really appreciate it. This has been a pleasure and an honor, sir. And as I said, for everybody else, we will make sure that all the links are there for Growing Leaders and for Tim Elmore, and all of the social media links. They'll all be there. They'll all be available for you. We'll make sure that they're there. And we want to thank you for tuning in today. We want to thank you for watching. You can hang out with other conscious leaders and chat about this episode or any of our past episodes inside of our Facebook or LinkedIn groups. Just look for the Leadership and Loyalty Podcast. It doesn't matter how successful you are. If your employees and your customers don't understand what gives your company meaning, you're only working at a fraction of your true capability. To find out how you can hire me, Dov Baron, as a speaker or leadership strategist for yourself or your organization, simply go to dovbaron.com. That's DOVBARON.com, because unified actualized meaning is the one single monolithic difference between mediocrity and greatness for all individuals and companies. I want to thank you for sharing the show with everybody you know. Till next time, stay curious, my friends. Stay curious about how you can embrace the paradoxes of leadership to become an uncommon leader, to lead like the leaders we need, not only for today, but for tomorrow. I'm Dov Baron. I'm here to assist you tapping into your deepest possible meaning to reach that next level of clarity, focus, purpose, and profit in your business, your life, and your leadership impact. And I am out.